What if a small startup transformed the future of artificial intelligence in the blink of an algorithm? Hello, you're listening to where What If becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University, where we ask the bold questions that will become innovations for the betterment of humanity. In January, a small, little-known AI startup sent tremors around the world when it released DeepSeek, its free and very powerful artificial intelligence chatbot app. Not only was it good, it was great. It rivaled and in some cases even bested many of the AI applications that were already starting to dominate the market. And shockingly, it was made for a fraction of the costs of what its counterparts, such as Meta, Google, and OpenAI, had spent on their large language models. The news about DeepSeek's launch sent tech stocks into a nosedive as investors began to question the financial future of AI. Companies and executives scrambled to figure out what happened and what they should do next. Business strategies changed overnight. Meanwhile, developers and the public were thrilled at using DeepSeek because not only was it a powerful and free new AI model, it had programming properties that were game-changing. Many called this AI's Sputnik moment when DeepSeek launched the AI race, accelerating competition and innovation among companies around the world. In this episode, we ask, what is DeepSeek? What is its transformative impact on AI? And what's next for AI and you? Let's find out. We're speaking with two leading experts on artificial intelligence from Carnegie Mellon University. Param Singh is the Associate Dean for Research and Carnegie Bosch Professor of Business Technologies and Marketing at CMU's Tepper School. And Graham Neubig is an Associate Professor at CMU. Param, let's start with you. Why did DeepSeek send shockwaves through the global AI community? And I guess what was so significant about it?
This is a great question. Let me say DeepSeek is the fact that it came out of China, where the US government has tried not to provide, almost limit the compute that is accessible to China. Like the fact that China was able to build this kind of a model which could compete and could like almost provide similar level of performance on math or coding as some of the state-of-the-art LLM models in United States like GPT 4.0 or O1, that has set tremors all across the world, and particularly in United States, because if you look at it, the 21st century, in that the bigger race is for technological dominance, because technology is going to play the biggest role here, both in terms of how we do improve our productivity, how do we improve our economy, and even in kind of more of in the defensive capabilities. And the fact that China is able to produce that kind of LLM despite US restrictions is something that was going to have serious geopolitical consequences.
And they did so for a fraction of the costs, right, Graham?
DeepSeek talked about training costs that were very low compared to the training costs that people traditionally thought were necessary to train these sorts of models. And the training cost was something on the order of $5 million, where at the very least, the competitors who were training similar models for tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars.
A big part of that cost saving came from DeepSeek using 2,000 relatively inexpensive chips versus 16,000 super chips for training their AI platform.
I think the notable thing is that they were able to create a competitive model with that small amount of hardware. And the way they did that was through a number of pretty clever technical innovations. Basically, they used a method called mixture of experts. And what this does is instead of using the entirety of the model at a time, they just use a small portion of the model to process any individual token. And so it's kind of like, humans, we aren't using our entire brain all the time. Some parts of it are more active than others. And when we're not using a whole lot of it, it saves energy. So it's kind of a similar principle. Like it decides which part of the model to use at any one moment. So you can have a very big model, but only use a small portion of it. And that makes it very efficient. And then there's some other things that are a little bit more esoteric. Like they have some smart memory optimizations that allow you to train with less memory and other things like that too.
Param, I also understand that DeepSeek took a novel approach to how it pays attention to analyzing data requests, looking at only some of the data, not all of the data. Thereby, they save some time, energy, and money, right?
Another thing that DeepSeek did was what we call multi-head latent attribution. This idea has been there in the past out there. Nobody has tried it at this scale, and somehow DeepSeek tries it, and it is doing quite well. So that has been kind of it's major innovation, I would say. Now, many companies are now trying to do similar sort of things and see whether they are able to replicate it.
DeepSeek has also been described as open source, which made waves because it seemed to offer transparency that would allow for crowdsourced improvements and simulate new development. Sounds very noble, but is that accurate?
Yeah, so DeepSeek is a very strong open source large language models. This was the first time that we really had open source models that were really competitive with the top kind of closed models from companies like OpenAI or Anthropic. And I think that was the big thing, basically that they had mostly caught up to the performance levels that were, boasted by kind of the closed companies.
Okay, so this is a bit of a confusion in this whole space, whether DeepSeek is in fact open source. For an LLM model, open source is actually much more complex topic now. You need to release the code of the model, you need to release the weights of the model, as well as you need to release the data of the model. Only then we can actually modify it, tweak it, and work with it. What DeepSeek has really released right now is just the weights. It hasn't released the code. And I don't imagine any company releasing the data as well. This is a good start, I would say, that the weights are released, but this is not fully open source.
Okay, but even with releasing just the weights, which are the parameters that govern how LLMs process information, DeepSeek's still giving developers a tool to crowdsource their own models or improvements, right?
People can download it and use it. It is cheap. It can be made even cheaper by the open source community working on kind of software to allow people to serve the model efficiently. And also it means that you can fine tune the model. So like, let's say you don't like something that the model does, you can go in and fix it. And there's actually a very prominent example of this where a US company called Perplexity went in and realized that the model was refusing to answer some questions about China. And they actually went in and tuned the model so that it would answer questions about China and be a good, a good model for search in the context of a US company that wants to be, relatively neutral with respect to that.
Huh. Is DeepSeek the first or only AI company to be open source?
Google open sourced a very famous model called BERT a long time ago. Meta is famous for its open source model Llama, which kind of was the model before DeepSeek that was the most performant model, and a lot of people used it or still use it. And so this is kind of just a chain of, gradually more performant open source models. But I think DeepSeek did really well. They did it for a very cheap cost, and that's why it's become more prominent in the everyday discourse. And like one other thing I should mention is that actually a lot of the companies that were building open source in the US have switched to being more closed. So OpenAI, as its name indicates, used to be an open company, and now it's not anymore. But actually with DeepSeek, the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, basically said, yeah, we realize that we should be moving farther back in that direction. And they've started actually talking about what their next open source release will be. And so we'll see if that actually does happen. But yeah, I think it has been a push for US companies to move back more into open source as well.
We shall see about that. DeepSeek also released a version, DeepSeek R1. It demonstrates its reasoning process. Param, was this concept of reasoning new, and why is it so significant to AI development?
So reasoning is like most of the LLMs are moved towards reasoning. Now, the interesting part is DeepSeek is not the one which brought in reasoning. In O1, it was already there in GPT's O1 and many of the other models. What reasoning essentially means is this. When you put in a prompt to the LLM breaks down the prompts into subparts and then talks to itself to come up with an answer. So the idea is that if you have a complex query, then the LLM is generally they were not able to do very well. Before DeepSeek, everybody was doing what we call chain of thought. Big prompt, you break down into subparts, and that's how you are going to do it. What DeepSeek started doing is what we call hierarchical prompting. It actually breaks down bigger questions, smaller questions, and so on. But that's where we are seeing most of the advantages. This also can limit to some extent even hallucination in some of these things.
And by breaking down these questions, the AI model approaches reasoning and has a greater probability of getting things right.
And the reason why is because it would start saying things like, wait, let me examine this and see if this is actually correct. And this behavior kind of emerges naturally from training the model in this way. You can actually go into the DeepSeek online app and try out the R1 model and see it go back and correct itself multiple times. And this isn't limited to math or coding that they trained on.
Amazing. Seems like DeepSeek is making AI even smarter. Dare I say more human? And on that note, it's time to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the future of AI and where it's going next.
Tepperspectives is the heart of thought leadership for the Tepper School of Business. Research, articles, and insights explore where artificial intelligence and machine learning intersect with business, management science, and organizational behavior. Tepperspectives is guided by The Intelligent Future, a data-informed and human-driven approach to innovation and problem-solving for today and tomorrow. Learn more at tepperspectives.cmu.edu.
Welcome back. You're listening to Where What If Becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University. We're talking with Param Singh and Graham Neubig, AI experts and professors from Carnegie Mellon University. Earlier, we talked about how the launch of the DeepSeek AI chatbot from a small startup company has sparked everything from panic to innovation in the AI industry. Now we're going to shift our focus to the broader AI landscape. So what major trends are you seeing in AI development today? Param, let's start with you.
So there are a number of trends we are already seeing. Right now, you see there is already AI-assisted coding that is already happening. Companies are incorporating these LLMs into your co-pilots and so on, where like people are coding and this AI is actually assisting them. AI is already replacing human interactions. For example, most of the customer service is moving to AI-assisted customer service, where in some cases AI is completely taking over the human interaction part in the customer service. Similarly, like AI is big in companionship. Like people are going online and doing companionship with AI, finding friends, partners, and so on with AI.
Sounds like AI is redefining the concept of search altogether.
For many, many years, like I've been teaching this course on digital marketing where I would cover Google search and I would say that's the synonym for search, how you do it. And there is no competition for Google, and that market is completely getting reshaped. With LLMs coming in, they're completely redoing how search needs to be done. And this market is going to get disrupted big time.
It sure is. I've noticed that Google increasingly provides like AI summaries rather than just links to websites. Aren't they kind of like essentially putting themselves out of business?
So this is a big question. Right now, all these models, OpenAI, Google, and Perplexity and so on, everybody is doing the same thing that in the past, you would go and click on these pages and that's how you will get information. And that's where the ads are also shown. Now, if you are getting the result directly, it is harder to figure out how you will monetize this. So there are some approaches emerging by which they can monetize. I'm not yet certain how successful those approaches are going to be. For example, when they are providing you the result in AI snippets, if they are providing some companies links, those links could be monetized. Right? So these kind of things have to be thought out, but it is going to be extremely disruptive to Google, what is happening.
I think so too. This is going to have wide-ranging implications.
It's going to be disruptive to the whole markets. If you think about, let's say you are New York Times or Wall Street Journal, and Google's Gemini or OpenAI actually goes and scrapes your data and starts providing those results directly to the users. Users have no reasons to come to these websites. A big question all of us as marketers are concerned about, like whether we are moving towards a zero-click future. If that happens, that will be very devastating for websites, because we need that click information to know what is the content that is actually getting value, or what is the content that customers want. Where is my website not doing very well? All that information, if I don't have, I can't optimize. So you can see Google search is going to be disrupted. Search engine optimization, all kind of advertisement is going to be disrupted in the next few years.
How about a zero-click future? That may be devastating for content companies, but it may make my online life a lot easier. Are there other trends that maybe you're seeing?
A lot of content creation has already gone to LLMs. People are creating text, video, social media posts. All of this is already happening. Now, where it is going to go further is there are 2 or 3 major things where we think it would go. One is it may move towards more hyper-personalization. We are still in the early days of hyper-personalization. Let's say if you're doing education, so you want these LLMs to now figure out what do you want to learn, where are your shortcomings, and fill in your knowledge gaps and really personalize these plans for you. Similarly, when you are going online and you want to purchase, let's say you want to plan a trip to, let's say, Italy, and you want to be there for 7 days across cities and so on, you can use these AI agents to do that planning. Right now, these agents don't do very well, but that is going to be the next big thing, where we have these AI agents which are going to do very complex tasks, multi-step decisions for you, understanding your preferences and aligning that with you.
Now, in previous episodes, we've talked about how AI is transforming science. Maybe you could elaborate on that for us.
Another big thing where I see a lot of breakthrough that is suddenly happening, which was very hard to do before, is in natural sciences, in terms of scientific discovery. Like there was this whole problem that we have been studying in sciences related to protein folding. This was an extremely hard problem, extremely costly to figure out how proteins fold. And if we understand protein folding, means like how proteins organize themselves in 3D structures, that can help us answer a ton of questions related to which, what causes Alzheimer's, how to solve for that problem, how to eliminate certain diseases and so on. And just figuring out that was extremely hard. But now even versions of GPT are able to predict that folding structures reasonably well. These are early stages, but that's what is happening. And recently, Google's DeepMind, what they did was they looked at all these papers published in different research journals and so on, learned a model based on that, and they were able to come up with some around 300,000 inorganic crystals. These were completely novel crystals which were not found in the past. So research and discovery is where it is going to play a big role.
Graham, how are you seeing AI accelerate scientific work?
Going a little bit further into the future, I am certain that we will have AI helping us run scientific experiments as well. And what I mean by this is, number one, it might be helping us write the code for the scientific experiments. Number two, it might be helping us choose which experiments to run. So might be able to choose which experiments are most likely to achieve a positive result. Another example is synthesizing scientific literature. So right now, you can get an AI model that will download, hundreds of papers and summarize them for you and pick out the most relevant ones. And so I think all aspects of scientific discovery could be accelerated by this. And that's actually one of the things I'm most excited about, because then we can start thinking about how do we, tackle the grand challenges that we as humans face now, like, global warming or medicine or hunger or things like this.
Wow. Now, I understand that the concept of multimodal is one of the next big things in AI. Param, can you explain what that means?
Multimodal is kind of the name of the game right now. Every big model is moving towards multimodal, where you can put in your text, videos, images, and you want the chatbots or agents to actually work with that.
Wow. And Graham, what's your take on multimodal?
So traditionally, language models, they took in text as input and they output text as output. In multimodal, kind of in the broad sense just means you don't only have one modality like text, but you could have other modalities like images or speech signals or videos. And it could also mean you're inputting time series data from the stock market or other things like this. So it could be any modality that you want to think about. And yeah, it's very, very useful in just about anything you want to do.
I was just reading about another trend where software developers are using AI-powered coding agents to assist in development. So that leaves more time for creativity. Graham, how's that going to work?
Coding agents, basically what they do is, well, maybe taking one step back, chatbots can help out with coding by you asking a question and it generating code for you. And then after it generates the code for you, typically what you would do is you would like copy paste it into your existing code editor or code base and then run the code yourself. Coding agents, what they allow you to do is they can actually directly look at the file system, directly edit the file set you have on the file system, read them, and then go in and run programs for you. The reason why this is good is they can actually run a program, and if there are bugs in it, it will fail, and then they go in and interpret the bugs and fix them and run it again until things work. They can, traverse the whole file system, try to find the appropriate location to make a change, and then fix it and upload it for your review and other things like this. And this can be used for development of any type of software.
Well, that should clear things up, literally. I can see how that makes software development faster, more efficient, more accessible. As these coding agents correct their own work, are we bringing AI platforms closer to the way humans think? Could this lead to something like, consciousness or self-awareness? Param?
Yeah, we are moving towards that. I still believe we are a bit early in the stage. It's not going to happen in the next 2-3 years or so. It will take some time before we reach there. Can I get an LLM to say sorry and apologize when it makes mistakes? Even the current models can do that, yes. If you use AI companions, they do all these things. They demonstrate all kind of feelings. So you can build in those feelings if you want in these, but their feeling really doesn't mean much at this time. These are kind of hard-coded kind of feelings out there. Now, if we come back to, can we get it like have a consciousness in the model almost like that, right? Like a human consciousness. We could get there.
Amazing. The combination of potential consciousness with hyper-personalization is a double-edged sword, right?
Yes. That is going to be a very good thing, but it also leads to these concerns about your privacy as well. Right? If an LLM knows very personally your preferences, your tastes, and so on, and it has a consciousness, it may start making decisions for you. It could potentially be possible. So we need to put some sort of guardrails against it as well. But this is where the whole field is going at this time.
One thing I would say is better models also tend to be more trustworthy. And what I mean by this is, worse models make mistakes, and those mistakes can be just benign mistakes, or they can be very harmful mistakes, like bad medical advice or, deleting all the files on your computer accidentally. So I think in general, model capabilities help prevent accidental harm, for sure.
True. Param, you're also working on interdisciplinary collaboration in AI education. How's that reshaping how we teach students?
Okay, there are a number of things we are doing on the interdisciplinary side. Okay, let me say one of the things that we are pushing at the Tepper School and broadly at Carnegie Mellon is also related to education in this space. Right? We think our students are going to have access to LLMs in future. A lot of the education historically has been very syntactic, that you remember things. You remember these formulas, remember this information, and reproduce that. A lot of that is going to go with LLMs right now. So what we are doing over here is we are trying to see how should we teach the student and what should we be teaching the student, which comes to critical skills. And most of these critical skills come from specific domains or specific disciplines that they want to teach.
So we've been discussing a lot of the exciting opportunities for the future of AI, but what are some of the challenges? Param?
One of the biggest challenges with AI that is happening is related to how much energy it needs. If you look at how much it costs to build a GPT or a Gemini or so on, the cost of energy is going to be very small, maybe 1-2% or so, or maybe 5% at best. The problem is not the cost of energy. The problem is that we don't have in the United States that much energy that is available. That is a big problem. That's why you hear Microsoft trying to reopen this Long Island nuclear reactor, or like these many of the companies, Westinghouse, trying to build up the small modular reactors, or like natural gas plants trying to be built up. So there is this cross-campus effort going on between engineering, Tepper School, computer science to figure out problems in this space. How can we kind of solve this energy problem? And a lot of this energy is not even clean, because you cannot scale up a nuclear reactor's energy. You can't scale up solar, you can't scale up water. The only scaling up happens is for fossil fuels. So then all these questions come up, like how do we make it more greener? What should be the policies that should be built for this? So there is a very cross-disciplinary effort that is going on campus.
I also read that AI may be running out of data, and I was thinking we had too much data.
One of the challenges that is going to come is that very soon we are going to run out of real human-generated data for these to train these models. A lot of the data that is now getting generated, put on the web, is at some level being generated by these LLMs. If that data has hallucinations built into it, that people have posted hallucinated data and so on, the model is going to pick that up. So that is going to be the next challenge that we are going to see.
All right, so let's look into your crystal ball. What's next for AI? Param, what is the next big thing?
So the coming next part, I would say, is the big thing is going to be agentic AI. We are starting to see something, some progress on it, but it is very early stages right now. Like what I mean by agentic AI, these are agents based off LLMs. They can make complex decisions, multi-step decisions without human intervention. Right, so this is where the bigger productivity gains are going to come. This is where the new business models are going to come with the LLMs that are going on.
Like a chatbot that not only helps you plan a trip, but also knows your preferences for hotels and airlines and books the whole trip amidst a changing dynamic environment without you having to do anything?
Now it has to go look at different websites to find where is the better trip, and then go to that website where it's the better, airfare is cheaper, go look for hotels and so on. All those things, it has to work. And if those websites change and so on, that creates problem for it. That's the dynamic environment. Much more complex kind of thing you can think of.
And Graham, so what's the future of AI look like to you?
I can tell you about my personal holy grail, that we're using AI to solve like the big problems facing humanity now. And I think once we see major improvements in, for example, scientific progress, or even if it doesn't require new science, like logistics to help start solving hunger problems, or improve the economies of countries that don't have as good economies, that would be kind of my personal holy grail. I think one caveat about this is AI also has the possibility of increasing disparities. If we get to a situation where people who have lots of resources can use AI, but people who do not cannot. And I think, DeepSeek and open source are very powerful tools in ensuring that that's not something that happens, because they bring down prices, they make it more accessible, they make it so you can even run it on your own hardware. Accessible AI that can help people solve the problems they're faced with is, a holy grail that I'm looking for.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode. Big thank you to my guests, Param Singh and Graham Neubig, and a special thanks to you for listening. Please check the show notes where you'll find links to additional resources from this episode. And to learn more or contact us with maybe an idea for a story or some comments, please visit cmu.edu/whatsnextpodcast. We hope you're enjoying this show. If you are, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast site, and be sure to share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. I'm Randy Scott, and you've been listening to Where What If Becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University, where we're asking the bold questions that become innovations for the betterment of humanity. Stay tuned and stay curious.